affecting us because we can't use it to cook with. We can't drink it. So since I've been here for a year, and I've always boiled the water since I've been here, and I've never don't brush my teeth with it. I shower with it, but I don't wash my face with it anymore. So and then I went to somewhere else to wash my hair because I didn't want it to get in my ears, my eyes, or my nose. So it's difficult.
Jackson have a history of having bad pipes, and politically they'll bring it up to get you to vote for them, and then afterwards they'll put a band-aid and just keep on going. But afterwards, a band-aid is not going to fix it if you don't fix the main problem. So they just fix it up just enough to get the votes, and then they'll just kick it to the curb.
Right.
And you just have to stay on top of it.
And it also seems like, I mean, Jackson's kind of historically been underfunded in a lot of departments at the state level. You know, money will get sent to Mississippi. Probably not enough money gets sent to Mississippi, but then when it gets divvied up to where it goes, it's seemingly ending up in more affluent like white areas, and again, frankly, neglecting lower income black areas. And
well, I'm just gonna say lower income areas, period.
Yeah.
Because we have blacks and whites that's in lower income. So I'm just gonna say the lower income areas really suffer because that's when it makes us band together and try to help each other regardless.
Yeah.
Of your color, we're gonna try to help and support each other. We just can't get local governments. They need to quit fighting them amongst each other and go and do what they have to do.
Right. You work here as a waitress?
Yeah, I do a little bit of everything. I've worked around Jackson as a bartender for 10 years. I'm from Texas originally. I've worked here twice over the years because the owner is a really awesome guy. But yeah.
Awesome. And I guess first off, you want to just talk about like how the crisis has affected like the restaurant as a whole. I mean, personally, I know like I've bartended and waited tables myself, and if you don't have people coming in the door, then things are tricky. I guess, have you seen business slow down, pick up, anything like that? And I guess, what are the day-to-day operations like?
Okay, so this is like not new. This has been going on the entire time I've worked here. So every restaurant that I've ever worked at always has bottled water like in storage somewhere, or like to-go plates, because at any moment we might have to switch to bottled water if we're under boiled water or we lose water, and that's every restaurant I've worked at.
And it happens frequently enough that
yes. And then like there was an ice storm that shut all of our water down like maybe 2 years ago. I didn't have water at home or work for 2 weeks. I bartended 2 days with no running water. Like we had jugs and like it was just weird. But yeah, so this happening now, it's like, it's only unusual because of the news, but we've been doing, like, taking precautions,
And so it sounds like, the news no one comes and talks about this sort of thing.
No. We had the local news here on Monday, so, and I'm maybe the local news, but
Gotcha.
yeah, I like, throughout the years, I've never seen, like, the national attention that we're getting now, so. But the only thing that's different now is we got porta potties and a hand washing station in case it goes completely out. But that only happened that first week. So otherwise we just had pressure issues and you can't use it.
Absolutely. And you mentioned just before we started talking too, about 2 or 3 weeks now when all of this was started being announced, the governor had like a reaction of being kind of surprised to this. You had something to say about that.
So in my opinion, he got on the news and acted like this was shocking. He lives in Jackson in a mansion. He knows what's going on. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's blinded a little bit by his wealth or whatever, but it's been going on. And like when you say stuff about him, the governor and Tate Reeves, he's immediately, anybody that's into him, they're going to point the finger at the city officials. It's both of them. Like,
Yeah.
And it's just kind of, we're the poorest state in the United States. Like, also, so, we don't have any water right now. That's the last abortion clinic in Mississippi, and it's shut down. Like, it's kind of weird. Like, what year is it? Where are we? Like,
Right. And I mean, you mentioned this has been going on for a while. This morning before coming here, I've just been, folks on Twitter have been pointing out, like, oh, you got to go check out this or check out that. And I was on Mill Street here, and there's literally an open sewer hole no sewer on it, leaking out, all sorts of stuff, and
That's not even unusual. I don't know if you've noticed the potholes, and that is, some of it is the way that it's Mississippi clay, but also I think it's just misusing funds. Like, instead of it actually going to like fixing our streets or whatever, it's going into the hands of the politicians. Our Tate Reeves sent back a rental assistance that could have helped out a lot of people. He ended unemployment early. He said it was the rental assistance was like an experimental Washington thing, and we don't need it in Mississippi. And then boasts about our low unemployment rate. I mean, you can just drive around and see, like,
Yeah.
And then I'm glad you brought up Mill Street. So we used to have a brewery, and it was really good. It was called Lucky Town. And they were in that area off Mill Street, and they were there for about 7 years, and they had to shut down because of water issues. You know, the financial, like, you can't keep up with that.
Right.
Like, especially
Right.
a new business.
Yeah, at that scale, I mean, you need a lot of water in that process,
Yeah.
and like, you know, the fact that y'all are able to make it work is amazing. And it's terrible that you have to do that again. America 2022, and restaurants just constantly get used to not using their water because the water is bad enough often enough.
I don't give it to my dogs. I don't give it, like, my roommate works in Ridgeland, which is north of here, in Madison County, but she gets jugs of water from there, and that's what we drink and give the dogs, so, yeah.
That's insane. And I mean, what is it you think about Jackson that like this isn't normal in the rest of the country?
I'm gonna be real honest with you. It's racism. Like, it's you know, they can say whatever they want to say about it, but Jackson's 70 to 80% black, and Mississippi as a whole, I think, is majority white. But they want to be like, oh, you see that little blue spot in this red state where all the black people are at? Yeah, look at how they run a city. That's what they're doing. That's, in my opinion. Like, and you know, the city, I think I don't really know what his issue is, like, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you're right, and like, when you look at how funding, go ahead.
Also with the racism thing, it's not always, you know, black or white. It's also the rich against the poor. Like, that's the biggest, like, they want to keep us poor, and you know.
Yeah, no, that's a big part of it. And when you look at how the funding gets dispersed at the state level, like, obviously Jackson's the largest city in the state, but per capita, the money that goes to Jackson doesn't go to Jackson. You know, Jackson will be applying for grants and money for hospitals and schools and parks, and the money, and you know, they won't get it approved here, but other more affluent suburbs will.
Get something for like an entertainment kind of fun, and then they're like, we don't know where that money's at. It's ridiculous. And I also think when you're like poor and struggling and have no water, you have no time to be upset about these things. So, or you have like no energy. So it's just rough. Like, and you know, I'm very fortunate. I can't imagine like what's everyone's going through, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, is there anything else you want to share? I mean, that folks outside of Jackson need to know about what's going on, because frankly, I've been here for 5 days at this point, and every day it seems to seem like the situation is worse and worse, and I've been getting more and more pissed off every single day that I've been here that no one's doing anything.
I am full of rage. Like, so I'm from Texas originally, like I said. When I moved here, I wanted to go back to a major city. I fell in love with the people. People are really nice, creative here. Like Jim Henson's from Mississippi, for example. It's got a lot of history, a lot of arts going on, but it's not just water that we don't have. There's no access to education. There's schools in the Delta, they just don't have teachers. So it's not just water, it's all resources that we're lacking here. And we need, like, we're the poorest state, so I'm like speechless about it, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned just now too that you do some political art. You lightly talked about some of the funding for housing and whatnot that the state decided not to keep here and decided to send back, while people really could have used it. But you wanted to guys talk about a little bit about the political art that you've been working on.
So I did one with Brett Favre and Phil Bryant, and you know, like, was it Nixon that made up the welfare queen thing? It's not real, but I put welfare queen around it, and I like just draw weird pictures of Tate Reeves, like, and then the Madison and Mayor is another one I like to do. I don't know if you know a lot about Madison, but they're a very like rich suburb of Jackson, and because of white flight, that's another issue that happened in Jackson. But So like all the rich white people live out there, and the mayor, so like every building in that town has to be made from the same bricks, and like her brother owns the bricking company, so I did like her face and like bricks, and all in all we're just bricks in a wall. And then she also, like, we were supposed to get medical marijuana like a couple years ago, and she found some loophole to block it. I think it's because she can't figure out how to make money on it, because she makes more money on people going to private prisons, maybe, I don't know. But I did like a dunce hat and put dope over it. But yeah, I do things like that. And
the brick thing
so I don't
blows
set
my
anything
mind.
up,
That's wild. Brother owns the brick company. All the buildings
yeah.
in the town need to be made out of the bricks.
Yeah, they have to. Like, and have you drive
haven't
through
been
there?
through there.
It's like,
Okay.
and like cell phone towers have to be like hidden, so they're one's a big tree or something like that. But yeah, and it's kind of sad because like, you know, there's a lot of intelligent people here. A lot of people come to college here. That's what brought me here. But like more and more, I'm feeling so frustrated that I'm gonna like people are gonna leave, like people you want here, like the artists, everyone, like, and then the people who can't leave, my heart breaks, like, and yeah.
Yeah, that's a theme I'm hearing. I mean, I've talked to a couple of folks, just in general out in a couple different neighborhoods here, as well as at a senior center, of folks being like, you know, I'm trying to leave. You know, for me, I might be able to do it, but I know a lot of people who want to leave and can't do it because they're just barely scraping by. You know, I've the mothers with 6 kids at home, like picking up the whole family and moving them. It just isn't feasible for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't. Again, this is 2022. In America, you shouldn't have to pick up your family and move because you don't have access to clean drinking water.
Yeah, and like it just makes no sense to me. And like to see the wealth, like the poor, like we're the poorest place, but we have some pretty rich people here, and they're running the show.
Yeah.
And like what? Yeah. I'm again speechless about all this.
And I mean, with the rental assistance money and there's other unemployment. I mean, it seems like, you know, some of the things that the governor has said about sending that money back is essentially, I don't want to get folks used to a liberal handout and the government's going to step in and save them.
Yeah, and he acts like poor people are lazy. Being poor, 1979. Being poor is so hard, and it takes so much extra work to like make up for that. And then like the playing field is never truly level. And I just hate the like, you know, it's again speechless.
I feel it's kind of shameful on the part of the state and government right now, the way they have left Jackson in this position and have left us for many years, because you have not been supposed to drink the water in Jackson for decades. So people in the 80s and 70s were talking about, we need to fix the water, and why don't they care about this population and what's going on and things like that. But quite frankly, I do think that the state, Mississippi state government, is racist, and this is particularly, like, this is an attack on black people in our communities, and just doesn't make any sense why we wouldn't be able to have basic human resources and needs that are provided to every other area around here. So yes, it's very shameful on behalf of the state, and it does feel very desperate staying in this area when you can't trust the water coming out of your tap. So, and we still have to shower and brush our teeth in this water, and we absorb everything that is in our body. So it's like we just have to absorb all these toxins and things like that, and that aren't safe, while other neighboring counties will have safe water that they can depend on. And then it just causes you to look at the population and what's the big difference here. Jackson is poor and brown and black, and the neighboring areas are predominantly white and have like more money. So, and that just is really why we keep doing this work, because we know this area, Jackson, deserves a level of dignity that everyone else gets. Like, we deserve basic human rights, and yeah.
So I'm here with Maddie from Cooperation Jackson. We are currently at a site that they've all set up for water distribution. I guess if you want to, first talk about what you all have going on today, and then talk about what Cooperation Jackson is as a whole.
All right, so today we're giving out waters to the community. This is our 3rd water giveaway, I believe, in the past couple weeks. The last time we were giving away water was during the crisis, when it was like the water like froze over in the pipes and we didn't have running water. A lot of people didn't have running water at that time. But So yes, for the past couple of weeks, we've been kind of flooded with lots of attention and support around these issues. But Jackson has been long neglected for the past decades, and as long as Jackson's history, really, for me and my family, that's what we've realized. And just being in a state that doesn't support you, the city is left with not many resources, and that leaves the community and the population just to be kind of left just to their own devices for a long time. And so you see a lot of how that affects the community when your needs are not being met and you don't see how you can get your needs met.
Absolutely. No, I mean, I've only been here for a couple days, but the gist that I've been seeing is it seems like everyone is kind of having to fend for themselves.
Right.
Luckily for a lot of folks, there are organizations like yours, and I've met a lot of folks involved with a lot of other organizations setting things up like this and doing deliveries and whatnot. But the response from the government seems to be lacking majorly. Do you want to talk a little bit about what Cooperation Jackson is and what it does, outside of when there are water crises like this?
Yes. So Cooperation Jackson is a network of cooperatives, and we all work to try to develop a more cooperative style of interacting with each other in a professional and just a community setting. So just working to build self-determination and help grow just sovereignty in the community. And so we do have a cooperative around food sovereignty. We have a few farms going on in the neighborhood, and we also have a cooperative around lawn care. So we work, and since we manage a community land trust, we try to have the lawn care cover the community land trust properties and things like that. So and cooperate. Well, we really just try to meet the needs where we can, and we're really working on raising just awareness about having people know that we're here and make our presence known. Like purchasing this shopping plaza we're at now. We're working to create a people's grocery store right in here in the next few years. Right now, just giving away water to the community where it's needed, and probably going to work on some deliveries soon.
You mentioned people for a long time have been boiling the water.
Right.
It's not something new. It made headline news last week for all of 5 minutes, it seems like. People seem to care. And then, when I was on my way out here, I'm telling people, I'm going to Jackson, Mississippi to cover the water crisis. And half of them are like, what water crisis?
Right.
Meanwhile, when even at the federal level, they're getting questions about it. The White House press secretary was like, we've sent money to Mississippi for clean water. It's like, well,
Right.
apparently it's not enough.
Jackson.
Yeah, it doesn't get to Jackson, and apparently it's not enough. You mentioned there too, people have been talking about this in the 70s and 80s. I spoke with someone who says that they remember their grandparents boiling the water to be able to use it in Jackson. It's ridiculous, and when you look back at the history, the governor during the last water crisis, again, as a water crisis after water crisis, said if people don't want boil water notices, maybe they should pay their water bills.
People are definitely paying their water bills for water that they can't really use for a lot of things. So I think Tate Reeves, you should just know that. And he had his own private water truck while there are people literally out here probably dying every day in this situation, things like that.
Then when you're driving around, some people don't have vehicles. So, but I have a truck. I'm able-bodied, and I use this walker. And when you go around to get water, they're only going to give you one case, so you got to drive around again. I'm like, well, why don't you just fill my truck bed up? I live in a senior place. I could be delivering water. But they won't do that. I had so much water because I drove around and around and around. But when they filled my bed up, I drove around again. They wouldn't give me any more water. Said I had too much. How can you have too much water and you have to drink it every day? That makes no sense to me.
No, agreed. And you said you've been boiling water for a year.
Since I've lived here, a year and a half.
And did some of that start? I know roughly around that time, you all had the winter storm that eventually caused some boil water notices as well. Has this been kind of going on for longer than that even, or?
Probably. Well, I lived in California. I only been here back in Mississippi a year and a half. When I got here in December of 2020, it was a bad situation then. And I don't understand why we're in this situation But it doesn't matter if you fix the facility. The streets are so bad, and my thinking is, well, the pipes are underneath the streets. So if the streets are all tore up with holes down past the concrete level, so what's happening under there?
Right. Right. Yeah. If the streets haven't been done in that long, they certainly haven't dug up the water pipes. I mean.
Exactly. So you're still getting dirty water, regardless of what's happening at whatever pump facility or whatever. It doesn't matter. So it's a waste of taxpayers' time, taxpayers' money, and our officials are doing nothing. For where I stand, they're getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to do absolutely nothing for the city of Jackson or its residents.
And you mentioned before we started too, you're considering leaving. Do you think that's something that a lot of folks are considering, and how feasible is that for folks? Yeah.
It may not be feasible for everybody, but it will be feasible for me because I'm going to do it. You know, I was going to do it this summer, but I decided, my car was totaled, so I decided to get a truck. And I'm like, okay, now I know I'm really moving now. I got to get out of Jackson. The other side of the street is Clinton. This side is just Jackson. So
yeah, you move across the street basically, and you're able to have clean water.
I don't wash at this facility. I go to Clinton and wash my clothing because I was tired of my clothing coming out smelling and turning brown. So I stopped washing here.
And I guess, what is it that you think about Jackson that's causing this? I mean, looking at this, from afar, I'm in from Texas covering the story. It seems like Jackson's historically been underfunded from the state level, given that it's the largest city in the state. I guess, why do you think that's happening?
It's the capital city. It's poor leadership. Things come from the head down, like the word of God says. From the head, it flows from the head down. If the head is doing nothing and being ambivalent or ignoring the issue, and this isn't just an issue that's just started this century. This has been going on in Mississippi for centuries, for it to be the poorest state in the union with the highest taxes. That makes no sense. When people are still living in abject poverty in the 21st century, it makes no sense. So it starts with leadership. It has to start there because they're the one that's supposed to be providing, receiving funds. Well, the funds that they received, we never got. They never dispersed to the citizens. When COVID came, the COVID money, the governor says, oh, I'm cutting this off, I'm cutting that off. I can get no services from this city of Jackson. I qualify for nothing. So they say.
Yeah. And right, you mentioned obviously the COVID happens, you had the first boil water notice, now you have another one. It seems like thing after thing. And for the governor to be sending, it's like, oh, we have this federal money, but we're not going to disperse it seems insane. Yeah.
Streets are still in horrible conditions. Drive around the city of Jackson with your camera and take pictures. I almost broke down in tears when I first moved back here and drove around. The street, the main boulevard at Delta Drive and Highway 49 were filled with holes this large. You had to go through an obstacle course. It was all the way down past the concrete broken. And they had just voted the mayor back in office. Why? If he's a representative for the city and the current governor is a representative for the state, and the city council is supposed to be representing districts, something is wrong.
Right. Yeah, and I don't know how the governors in the governor's mansions here in Jackson. I don't know how you can feel okay with seeing that every day, because it's not like he's in some faraway place. I mean, it's here. Yeah.
I don't understand myself. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, and I don't understand the citizens who keep putting these people back in office. I don't understand that. I mean, I know the way of thinking here is a little bit different than where I lived for almost 4 decades in California. So the thinking is a little bit different, and people are kind of fearful. But that makes no sense. I mean, just a common sense thing. It has to kick in at some point. And these people have to be told, you're wrong. You aren't doing what you were elected to do. You're just not. Other people are going to jail for stealing COVID funds, but they weren't the one. They got them from above. They didn't just hand them right to them. Right. That was a trickle down. But those who were actually involved in the trickle down, the head ones aren't going. They aren't being charged with anything.
Right. Yeah, I read a little bit about that. I believe there was in Mississippi, like Brett Favre was involved and all sorts of
some foundation that he had. The
Yeah.
former governor was involved, and other people from other organizations have gone to jail at different places.
Right.
But those are just peons. Those are just scapegoats.
Right.
Those aren't the individuals who received the money and signed the check and gave them the money. They just misused the funds once they got it, but the other ones were misusing it as well.
Right. And meanwhile, folks who could actually use the help aren't getting it.
Get it.
Yeah.
Did not get it, aren't gonna get it. You apply for it, they say you don't qualify. It doesn't matter.
Yep. Seems like a broken system.
Sad state of affairs. Sad state of affairs in the state of Mississippi and currently in this city of Jackson, Mississippi. I'm sad to say, it makes me so sad.
Me personally, I lost water pressure maybe 2 days this week, and luckily I had a family who were in different parts of the city who didn't lose their water pressure as bad, so it didn't affect me that much. I'm just grateful to have water, have running water. My water is, murky, but it's not as bad as I've seen other people's, so that's why I wanted to also just make sure I'm out here lending a helping hand for people who are impacted even worse than I am. Thankfully, we have these water distribution centers. Thankfully, we have people from out of town coming and donating water, because that's the main thing, like being able to drink clean water.
Yeah.
And I am thankful for that. Yes, we have to use the bottled water to brush our teeth, but I'm thankful that we even have people who are able to donate and that we have access to it here. So, yeah, personally, it's been a challenge, but I think I'm just grateful that we actually have pressure, because there's been times in the city where we did not even have water pressure. We had ice storms and snowstorms in the past couple of years, actually, and our water mains are bad as well. So when those water mains, when they break, we lose water completely. And I just remember in those times it was even worse, a whole week without any water at all, having to, just kind of do what we can with bottles of water, or hopefully somebody who lives on the outskirts of the city. So right now, having pressure, I know it sounds terrible that that is our thankfully,
Right, America 2022,
Yeah,
and
but
it's oh, we have water pressure.
At least we have
not
pressure.
Yeah.
So I'm holding on to that and just hoping that we can get a quick solution here in the city so we can actually be able to drink it once again.
And I guess one more question for you, if it's okay. I guess, what do you think of the response so far from, at the state level, the local level? Do we think they're doing enough? Is anyone talking about how to make sure that something like this doesn't happen again? I mean, lots of people have mentioned to me now, this is not the first time this has happened. This has happened 1, 2, 3,
Right.
Depending on how long you've lived here, it's a recurring problem.
Yeah.
I haven't heard much of solutions so far. I'm curious what you think of the response and if anyone's looking to do anything about this.
Yeah, so the important piece here is that this is a systemic justice issue here and a racial justice issue here. Environmental justice is racial justice. This city of Jackson is 80+% black. Our state legislature, our state leaders are majority white. All of our elected state officials are white. They've known about this issue for years, for decades. We've known that the infrastructure here in Jackson is crumbling, and we have so many state buildings that are not being taxed, and we have so many, there has been so much effort in the legislature from legislators here in this area, in the Jackson and Hines area, and even elected officials here in the city who have tried to get assistance from the state for years, and we haven't gotten the assistance that we needed from the state. The state knows about this billion-dollar issue that we have here, and they have continued to ignore it. Jackson is a majority black city. You cannot tell me that it is not because Jackson is a majority black city, and they have divested from the city of Jackson and put those resources that could have gone to fixing the infrastructure of our biggest city in the state, but instead those resources and that attention has been given to the bedroom communities that are majority white, that have been the places of refuge for the white people who were once living in Jackson. So yeah, it is systemic racism. It is white flight. They have divested from the city of Jackson and ignored those issues, and now that is getting national and international attention, now we want to try in and come in and swoop and get something done. grateful that that is happening.
Right.
But it sucks that it's been this many years.
Yeah, and even some of the response. I mean, I saw an interview with the White House press secretary yesterday. She was asked, like, the White House is saying that the governor needs to do more. Like, what specifically should the governor be doing? And the response was, well, we just gave $75 million for clean water initiatives in Mississippi. And also in the infrastructure bill, there was $400 million for Mississippi that's going to be given over the next 10 years. And I'm like, okay, like, so that's $75 million plus $40 million coming this year for a $1 billion problem,
Yes.
like you said.
Yes.
Like, pretending that that's going to fix it is insane. And like, and even at the state level, Mississippi will get funding, and then Jackson does not get proportionally what it should based on the population that's here. You mentioned it's the largest city.
Yeah.
Like, it's 2022, United States of America, the largest city in Mississippi doesn't have clean drinking water, and it's like a great moment that you have water pressure.
Yeah,
even.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, the issue is much larger than the small pennies that we have been receiving from the state, and that I've even heard that have been mentioned from local and state and federal officials. We all know that the issue is much larger. So hopefully that the resources come in and that we need to actually fix this. Hopefully this is not just a moment in time where we're in the national headlines now. Let's all try to come together. Let's do some tours. Let's talk about these plans. And then a week from now, once things have sizzled down, then there's no more action. But there needs to continue to be action.
Well, the way it's been affecting me is, we really can't use the water. We have to bathe in the water, we have to brush our teeth in the water, wash our face with the water, and they still expect us to pay a water bill. Water bill's gonna went up. I know mine's went up an extra $60 this month, but we can't use, so why should we have to pay for it? I have 6 kids plus me and my husband, so why should we have to pay for water if we can't actually use it?
Right, so water bill has gone up, but you can't use it for anything.
Yes, and can't use it for anything. Garbage barely getting picked up. It's a hit or miss, like on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, when garbage supposed to be picked up, you might get picked up one time that week. So it's crazy in Jackson. And it looks like the mayor's not doing anything to help us.
Yeah, I was going to say, what do you think the response has been from the mayor, from the governor?
Nothing. The mayor or the governor, nothing.
And why do you think that is? It seems like
they don't care.
They don't care.
They don't care.
And frankly, this isn't happening in the rest of the country.
No,
it's
here in Mississippi. It ain't like we didn't have the money. We had the money. The state, the government has given us money. Where the money has gone, I don't know, but we had the money. So why the problem not fixed?
Right. And it seems like in doing some preparation for the story on the way out here, doing some research, Mississippi is getting money from the federal government. But
billions of dollars. So where the money at?
Right. It seems like rather than going to Jackson, it's going to affluent suburbs that, frankly, probably don't need the money.
Yeah.
While Jackson's being overlooked.
It's suffering. Then we catch it's potholes everywhere. I know in a year's time I probably place 2-3 tires. The city don't give you no money back for that. If you mess up your alignment, don't have to call your insurance company. That's coming out your pocket. You can't even submit a claim downtown. They'll turn you around. So it's like, what's the use of staying here? All you doing, you going to work just to pay bills and fix your car from potholes.
Right. And you mentioned people, how are you going to stay here? Are people leaving? Are people trying to leave?
Yeah. I know I'm looking to leave. I might be leaving soon because this is ridiculous at this point. It's ridiculous.
No, absolutely. Part of this, and again, looking back at the history, Jackson used to be a pretty affluent city back in the day.
Yes, it did. I grew up here. I was born and raised here. It used to be where you can walk down the street, everybody knew everybody, wasn't no crime going on. But you really can't blame the police, the people that work in the police department because the city don't want to pay them. You coming out making $20,000 a year, $21,000 a year, what is that? You ain't going to risk your life. You just going to get a job. You just going to be a body. You just there.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Absolutely. And even looking at the past water crisis a year and a half ago, you all seemingly were in a similar position needing to boil the water. And
this every year, for the past couple of years, boil water notes, they still expect you to pay and pay at a premium almost, but you can't use the water. That's ridiculous.
And that was the governor at the time essentially came out and said, maybe if people in Jackson paid their water bills, they wouldn't have boiled water.
Their water bills.
Yeah. And even
other
if
than that, they were going to come turn you off, so you had to pay your water bill, so that's not the problem.
Right. And even if everyone was paying their water bills, when you have a water system that's nearing 100 years old, everyone can pay their bills all they want, but that's still not going to cover
money back in it. It's not going to do any good.
What's the water crisis been like for you?
Like I said, the boil water alert, it's been going on for it been going on. The boil water like been going on for the longest. And like we just get out in the community and you see pass out water to the elderly, people that need it. And some we take some and we get the bits that we can get and we load up in our car and take it home. It'll do something, but it still ain't enough.
Right. And I guess so far, the water distribution's great and all that, like folks can come and get water, and luckily there's volunteers like you all who are out there, getting it out to folks who can't necessarily come and drive to pick it up. What do you think of the response so far of like, I haven't heard any real solutions of like, how are we going to make sure this doesn't happen again? What are your thoughts on like the response from the local government, the state government on that end of things?
I mean, I guess these pipes old. They were here way before we even thought of. And maybe our grandparents would thought of. We gotta get new pipes. We gotta get new pipes because it's rust. I know it deterioration, all type of like stuff. And then we try to filter it. You can't filter it because the pipes are old and it's messed up the new machines that we do have. So it's like it ain't gonna work out. You gotta fix. You gotta put new stuff with new stuff. You can't use old stuff and then with new stuff.
Right.
So you just need new pipes overall.
Yep. And like the unfortunate reality of that is that like you read something recently like that's a $1 billion problem to like really go out and fix the whole thing, and yet like you've got politicians saying, oh, we're giving money to Jackson to fix this, and like in reality they're not. It's 2022 in the United States of America, and the largest city in Mississippi can't drink their water.
And then on top of that, we got all this money that we giving to third world countries when our home that in the States we don't even got clean water to drink, but y'all giving thousands, millions of dollars to third world countries.
Yeah, more than millions. I mean, literally, just this week they just added another couple $2 billion to aid in Ukraine, and it's like I feel bad for people in Ukraine as well, but like we should take care of our own. Like,
we should take,
you know what I mean? Like the fucking
first. We worry about what's going on outside of the states.
Yeah.
So we gotta take care of home first. Then worry about what's going on outside the states, and then we probably don't even need $1 billion.
Yeah. No, it's ridiculous that they can't make it happen. Again, largest city in Mississippi,
right,
capital
the
city.
capital.
Yeah. And I mean, it seems like a historical thing too. I mean, money will get sent from the federal government to the state of Mississippi,
right.
And then time and time again, it seems like Jackson isn't getting what it should be proportionally being.
We're not.
Yeah.
Because eventually the water gonna run out. The water's gonna run out eventually. The bottle's gonna run out. So then what people gonna do?
Right.
We can't keep delivering bottles and bottles of water every day.
Right.
The folk that delivering gonna run out eventually. So you can't keep doing this.
Yeah.
You can't keep doing it.
Yeah. You were saying you sounded like you wanted to say something. What?
He said make the United States great again.
I said make it great because it never been great.
Yeah. I mean.
Make the United States great.
And I think a lot of this too, like, it seems like too, I mentioned like the money being diverted to different places, like smaller, more affluent, like frankly, more white suburbs are getting the money, whereas Jackson, which is a majority black city, isn't getting it.
Get what we need because they paving everything around you. True enough, the city is paving certain streets, but we go to Madison, Ridgeland, and Flowood, things like that. Then we got to worry about no potholes. We got to worry about we can't drink that water. Them restaurants down there operating at full capacity.
Yeah, I mean
our restaurants down here, we got to get canned drinks.
Yeah,
like no, that ain't no.
$2.
Right. I guess first off, do you want to just share kind of your experience so far with the water crisis that's been going on?
Yes, we've been going through a water crisis here now since 2000, and it's been hard. You have to boil the water to wash dishes, boil the water to take a little shower. But we just want to thank God now for all the help that has come through, and it's gotten better, but we still have a long ways to go. And a lot of people wants to put it on the mayor, but this young man inherited this problem. It just didn't happen overnight. This has been an ongoing thing, and it's just gotten worse since he's been in office. But he's doing an awesome job, and we just need to stand behind him and the governor and hope that they will continue to work together, that there won't be no division between the government and the governor and the mayor. So we just want to thank God for all these different organizations that has come in and donated water, and we thank God for you as well.
Thank you very much. I guess, to start off some of this in the last couple of weeks, at least, when this kind of made more national attention, it seemed like there was a little bit of strife between the mayor's office and the governor's office.
Yes, it was.
I guess, What do you think, in the past it seems like Jackson has been underfunded at the state level. What do you think is some of the cause of that, and why do you think this is happening in Jackson, whereas it's really not happening in a lot of the rest of the country?
Well, I think it's been underfunded for a long time. Instead of giving Jackson the money that they deserve to get the water repaired, it's going to Madison. And it's government who makes the decision as to where the money goes for certain things to be done. But certainly it hadn't been coming to Jackson like it should. And hopefully now there's this national news and everybody know about it. Jackson will get what it deserves.
I certainly hope so, and I want to share your optimism, but it seems, last week it kind of made news all over the place, right. And a big reason why I'm out here now is it seems like it happened last week, and it's everyone assumes that it's over, right? Yeah. But you said you've been dealing with this for 20 years.
No, not 20 years.
Oh.
I'm sorry. I started last year.
Okay.
We went for about 3 weeks without water.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been an ongoing thing.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was really bad last week because last year I went at least 3 weeks without water. Having to get up and go to work, boil water, to take a sponge bath.
Yeah.
But it's gotten better within the last week.
Okay.
Because I do have water pressure now.
And
but
you didn't
still
have water
can't drink it though.
Right.
This fire hydrant has a history of this leakage for over 15 years. It's gone through 3 different administrations. No one has addressed this problem. Along with that, I've talked to the councilman as well as the mayor and the public works director and even the fire chief and previously. So this is all falling on deaf ears. As you can see, that is drainage of sewage water coming down the street, which is a hazard. You have little children playing and on the way to school here. You have a church across the street here. You have potholes in front of the church that has not been addressed. So my whole thing is this. We got people in elected positions that are not doing what they could do for the city. You can't solve all the problems. I realize that. And a mayor promised on his father's word about kicking the can down the road. What are we talking about? You have a major university over here, Jackson State University, and you have all this stuff in the shadows of that university.
Right. I mean, for folks, I'll show an angle of this. The university's right there. You can see it. And this is happening right next to it.
Right.
Yeah. And I guess how long, obviously this current water crisis has been going on for a bit here, but from the folks I've been talking to the last couple of days, this is not a new thing.
No, it's not a new thing, and it's a reoccurring problem, and every mayor tries to blame the previous mayor. Well, when we gonna stop pointing fingers at other people and start doing what we're elected to do or should be doing? And so, it makes no sense to me. And what it needs to be done on is the voters. When you put these people in position, you need to hold them accountable for what they're doing. If even if it's down to your local councilman, if they don't come out and address this, who will?
Right. And it seems in some of this research I've seen, to actually fix the water problem here, realistically at this point, because it's been decades and decades and decades of people kicking the can down the road, as you said, it's now almost $1 billion problem. Most of the pipes all need to be replaced. The treatment facilities need to be fixed, and all sorts of this stuff. It seems like at the state level, where a lot of the funds are being distributed, the money, rather than proportionally going to Jackson, ends up in more affluent areas outside of Jackson. Frankly, more affluent white areas outside of Jackson, whereas Jackson's not getting the funds they should be getting per capita because this is the largest city. Is that something you're seeing?
Why would the citizens of Jackson even pay irate water bills for services that they don't even receive? You keep tapping on and talking about 2 meals here, 2 meals there, extra millage there for various things that need to be done here to improve the capital city. This is your capital city. It not only lands here in Jackson, it lands in the county, It lands in the state. It lands in the United States. We're a country that's built on pulling ourselves up. So let's do that and stop passing the buck. You know, there's a famous president said, the buck stops here. When the buck gonna stop?
Right.
We keep passing it on. We want to blame people, past administration. We want to pass through people. You know, I'm not a angry citizen or trying to point a particular person out. There is a whole conglomerate of people that you can blame, and those in that lodge, you should see all of their faces and all of their positions and their responsibilities. They ask for the job. If you don't want to do the job, let somebody else do it.
Right. Thanks so much for taking the time. Is there anything else you want to share that folks should hear?
I mean, as you view the area, you will see what's going on at one of Mississippi's most prominent universities. This is HBC, but it is a very prominent university in this country. So we need to make sure that we take care of our future as well as our past.
It is real hard, and I study each and every day. It's a struggle because I have to make sure they're not drinking that water at all. I have to make sure that my house is sanitized, they're sanitized, and I have to constantly boil water. Because at first you can boil the water for so long, then you can cook with, but now it's to the point that you can't even boil that water. You have to boil bottled water. So it's really a hard struggle for me, but I continue to do it each and every day
So the
to
water,
survive.
Yeah. So the water that's coming out there, like they're saying, like don't even. It's still not even safe to even boil it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's still not safe.
Yep.
Because they still trying to clean the lines and do this and do that. So right now, I still just gotta keep. Even me being at work and being a volunteer, even when it's time for me to get off, I still have to go to these different sites where they pass out water and get me some cases to take them home with me.
And I mean, it sounds like this has been a problem that's happened more than once in Jackson.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about some past experiences with this as well?
Well, yeah, the past experience, the kids been out of school and have to stay at home and make sure that they was on virtual. And same thing basically I'm doing now. Keeping their hands clean, keeping stuff around them clean, sanitizing everything, wiping everything down.
So having to close schools because of the water.
Yes.
Yeah. So, like, I mean, that the America 2022, we're having to have kids not be going into school where they should be and learning because we can't have
clean. They have to be at home, on virtual learning.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when they send the laptops home with them so they can get on virtual learning.
Right.
And it's just like all of them, it's almost like they're in the class, but they're not, but they at home on their computer.
And, like, I would imagine...
And the teacher is teaching them.
I would imagine that's difficult for a lot of parents to deal with. If you can't work from home, where are your kids supposed to go? Right.
And when I say, and then it is a struggle because now you got to get them up at 7 and make sure they sitting in front of that laptop at 8 o'clock so they can zoom in, so they can be present, you know what I'm saying? Because if they're not, they still mark absent through all the water crisis and all that. So it be hard, but I'm a parent. I have to do what I have to do to survive during these crises.
And I guess what has been your thought of the response so far? So, like, I obviously, like, having the water distribution center is great and all, but I haven't really heard any sort of, like, solution to, like, hey, here's how we make sure this doesn't happen again. Have you heard any of that? And I guess, like, what do you think of the response so far?
The response so far right now that I heard that they are working on it right now to get it so it can be up to par so this will not happen in the long run. So it take time, and everything not gonna happen overnight, you know what I'm saying? Right. Because this is a long process. This is something from years and years and years that been working on, and they haven't found a solution for it yet. Right. So now they're working even harder to find a solution for this crisis.
Right. And I guess last question. Why do you think that this is happening specifically in Jackson, right? Like, this isn't, fortunately in most of the country, having to deal with not having clean drinking water isn't an issue. Why do you think that this is an issue that seems to have happened multiple times here?
Now, that is a good question because at this point, I'm going to say maybe something is wrong with the lines or something, and they have to really go down there and see what's going on so this issue won't keep happening in Jackson. Right. But I don't have no idea why it keep happening in Jackson.
Yeah, from the outside looking in, I mean, seeing like Mississippi will get funding for certain things, and it seems like Jackson is historically like underfunded and not given the amount of money it should be getting, considering that it's the largest city in the state. And it seems like a continuous pattern of when it's time to distribute the money, Jackson's not getting its fair share of it. But then at the same time, it's like, oh, well, why don't they have clean drinking water? It's like, well, maybe if you are able to get the city the resources that it needs, then we wouldn't be in this situation. But
yes, because I truly feel like that. You know what I'm saying? If they give us the funding that we need, yes, Jackson Kent water system and water crisis can get better and better. But we need the help.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I teach law and public safety there at Hattiesburg High School, and one of the things that we do in emergency response is when tragedies, disasters happen, man-made or natural. As law enforcement and doing what I do as a first responder, we respond. And a lot of it has to do with, like here in Jackson with the water crisis that we have. I wanted my students, I have 25 that's on schedule there. And what we do is we teach emergency response. And so one of the biggest things that we want to do in this case right here, because they were dealing with this water crisis, I wanted my children to know, my students to know that this is what we do. We respond out, we help. Actually, today was a day off for them. We had yesterday off and we had a day off today, but I called the parents, told the students, we're going to Jackson to help out. And that's why we're here at the living facility. We wanted to make this as easy as possible. Students, although they need community hours, I really wanted them to see and experience this firsthand, what it's like to help other people that you don't know, help other people that you're not familiar with, and there's a crisis in place, so that our hearts, can basically, and that's what we do across the line. We heart to heart. So yes.
Absolutely. And just for folks who may not know, where is Hattiesburg in comparison to Jackson?
Sure. Hattiesburg, we're about 90 miles south of Jackson.
Okay.
Again, this is our law and public safety class. Both classes, level 1 and level 2. We're with CTE, career, we used to call it VOTEC back in the day, but it's career technical education. And so what we do now is these students will get an opportunity not only to do this, but also they graduate. A lot of them can go directly into the field. They can go into EMS, they can go into fire. Law enforcement, of course, takes a little bit longer, but we cover 6 disciplines: military, corrections, emergency management, and of course law enforcement. So they get an opportunity to do this. So they'll graduate. Seniors that I have, they'll graduate and become EMTs. Some will go into fire. So so it's great.
Absolutely, and I mean, it's unfortunate, but this is obviously probably a good learning experience for them to be able to come and do this and see this, and hopefully, be able to look at this and try to do what they can to make sure, in whatever roles they're in, to help prevent things like this from happening in the future.
Absolutely.
I guess on the crisis, I mean, what do you think about how this has unfolded? It seems like Jackson's had water issues multiple times in the last couple of years. I guess what do you think of the response that's happened from the government at this point so far? Obviously the water stations and whatnot are good where they're giving away the water, but no one has heard much as far as how do we actually prevent this from being a thing next year and the year after.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that we talk about, especially in my class, we deal with politics, and we deal with the hard side of it. This is not a one-person issue. This is not a right now issue. This is decades and decades of things that have taken place. And the great question that you did pose, how do we prevent this from happening again? They've got a while to go. Even with us doing the water, and although they got the water pressure back up, still probably not going to be safe to drink. And so still be at this juncture for a while. We're grateful, thank God, that they did get an opportunity with outside resources coming in. But of course, again, this is not only this time. This is going to be a lot of work. And we're talking about Rome was not built in one day, and neither did it, was it destroyed as it relates to wanting to say this is a lot of work. And citizens need to understand that. They need to know that this is a reality. And we could try to place it on government. I can point my finger at you and at me, but this is talking about decades. This is decades and decades, and when you look at this stuff. So again, it's something that's going to have to be addressed federally as well as nationally and locally, statewide. But I wanted my students to get this experience, to see this, especially, and we're in hurricane season, and we were dealing with Katrina, and I told them how I had to respond, and this is some of the same stuff that we had to do at Katrina. And so, you know, here we are years later, still dealing with those type things. And so, you know, again, 9/11 just gonna happen, you know, next week or so on Sunday. This is all great experience for them to get a chance to see. And so we're hoping Jackson will climb out of this.
So far, it's been hard trying to get water and make sure that, I get enough to be able to, because sometimes I can get out to get water. And so by them coming, helping us, like the high school student today, then that's a blessing to us. Yeah.
And now, I would imagine a lot of folks here don't have a car. And if you don't have a car, you have to fully rely on folks like this. Is that right?
Yes, that is true. And then most of the time when they don't be around, most of the people that do have cars here, they come and bring people water back if they give it to them. Yeah.
Yep, and it sounds like some folks were try to go and pick up more because they know that some folks here don't have a vehicle, and some of the sites won't give them extra water because you're only allowed one.
Yeah, that's the hard part, because if you go to a place and they giving away water and they don't give a one to a car, then it's really hard, because you can't get the person that you really want to give water to that really can't get out and go on their own to get water. So that's a big help. The high school coming out, volunteer people that come out, volunteer to bring senior citizens water, I think that's a blessing. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I guess how long has this been affecting you now? And is this the first time, or have you been around for other water issues as well?
I've been in Jackson for a long time, and the problem, we've been having this problem, but you take time and prayer for the water to get better and everything to get better. So everything's not going to get better overnight. It takes time, it takes money, it takes dedication to solve the problem. Yeah.
And why do you think that the state and local government essentially let it get to this point, though, and didn't try to do something about it sooner? Or why do you think this isn't a problem that's happening in a lot of the rest of the country? And it's really unfortunate that it's happening here in 2022. You should be able to drink your water. Why do you think that the neglect was put on for so long, and the resources weren't getting here to help in the first place?
I'm thinking that the governor's hand is tied. I mean, he can only do so much. That the people that over here. So when the people over here get right, and then the governor can do what he needs to do for getting things fit and stuff like that. So we still have roads that need to be fit and stuff. So I'm assuming that that's what the problem is.
Yep. Hopefully some additional resources can get sent over, because it should be unacceptable in 2022 that you don't have clean drinking water in the largest city in the state of Mississippi.
And that's to be the capital of Mississippi, so.
Yeah.
But that's hard sometimes, and then it gets frustrated. Some people get frustrated and they act out. But I'm praying that it get better. Yeah, as time goes on, that the governor would, be able to do his job and go ahead and do his job and solve the problem.
I guess first off, do you want to just explain to folks what your situation has been with the water?
Well, I don't drink the water, and I'm afraid to drink the water because I'm scared it got some kind of disease in it, and I don't want to get no disease, and I don't want to go to no hospital, and I got a hubby disabled, and I'm disabled, and we can't take no chance being sick or going to the hospital because my insurance would pay for me to go, but Medicaid don't pay for all his, and I've been going around getting water, bottled water, to take care of me and my husband and take care of my animals. And I wish the city would do something about the city water because they got all that money. They said they got $12,000 something. Why don't they do something with this water than doing it with the roads?
And how long have you been having to do the bottled water rather than the tap water?
About 2 weeks.
2 weeks? And has this happened before as well?
Yes, it has, and I had to boil water.
Absolutely. And I mean, so it sounds like this is a recurring thing that's happened multiple times. I mean, what do you think about the response so far from, you know, either the local government, like you mentioned, and even the governor, or even higher?
Well, I think the government could do more, and I think the city mayor could do more. You know, he wanted to, you know, but I don't think he wanted to, you know. I think, I'm gonna be honest, I think somebody pocketing the money, you know, and I don't think it's right.
Right. And I mean, you obviously, rightfully so, mentioned you're worried about getting something from the water. Whenever they say that it's going to be safe to drink again, are you going to be weary about continuing to drink it, or?
No, I'm gonna buy a bottle of water. I'm gonna buy a bottle of water.
Right.
All the time. That's what we've been doing, and that's what we're gonna be always doing.
I've lived in Jackson about 35 years or so, and it seems like it's a constant issue with our water.
Absolutely. You mentioned the governor. I mean, at this point, like looking back historically, it seems like Jackson has been historically underfunded in a wide variety of departments, not just water, but in other places as well. And then, you know, it leads to these recurring water crises. As you mentioned, you've seen several in your 35 years living here. What is it about Jackson, do you think, that is essentially like, you know, why does this keep happening here? This isn't normal for the rest of the country.
Well, I would say because Jackson, and I would hate to bring race in it, but we are, the population is more African American here in Mississippi. Jackson is the highest. So the other surrounding metro area like Pearl, Madison, Clinton have a higher Caucasian population. So I would say race play a little into it, you know.
No, I definitely agree with you. And I mean, like looking back at it too, it seems I know during the last water crisis, the last winter, you know, the boil water notice went on, and I saw a quote from the governor that essentially said, if the residents of Jackson paid their water bills, they wouldn't have boil water notices.
Right, and we pay our water bills.
Yeah.
And I haven't been affected with the high water bill, but I've had members at our church who are elderly people, so we know they're not using a whole lot of water, you know, and they're using the same consistent water.
Right.
And last month your water bill might have been $45, $50, $60, but then here you come with an $1,800 water bill.
Right.
And that shouldn't be so.
Is that something people have actually seen that high?
Yes.
For water that you can't drink?
For water that you can't drink.
$1,800.
And water that you didn't use. So.
That's insane, and the fact that this isn't like top headline news across the whole country is like an absolute shame.
It's an absolute shame.
Yeah.
And now the water company is threatening to cut people water off.
Because they're not paying their bill.
Because they're not paying
of the water that they can't use.
Of the water that they can't use. They say you can bathe in it, but you're actually scared to bathe in it also. Yeah. And if you're like me, you got pets and you're a pet lover, you can't give the water to your pet.
Right.
So you have to boil your water for the pets, or come get in the long water lines. Which is gas.
Right.
Another thing, because you having to go to this one because they're going to only give you 2.
Yeah.
And you might have to run over here to another one because they're going to only give you 2.
And I mean, when I got here earlier, the line was wrapped all the way around this old mall that's an abandoned mall essentially.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely takes a lot of time, and I'm curious if you know this. I mean, what happens to folks who don't have a car who want to get water?
Well, that's been my run today. I know some of our seniors in our church and in my neighborhood can't get around, not just seniors, some young people also. So I have been going to water distribution, picking up water, and actually taking it to other places. And when you ask, can I get one for one of the elderly ladies, I have to turn around, go get right back in the long line just to get more water.
Yeah, that's insane. I mean, that's luckily there are folks like you who are kind enough to actually go out and do it and help those folks out. But it's also pretty sad that like we're not able to provide, the government's not able to provide for some of those folks who don't have the means of transportation.
Right, and I don't know who it was. Somebody had a campaign going, if you see a ramp at someone's house, pick up water and deliver it to them. Some people I've given water to, I don't even know their name, but it's what we do.
And as you can see, like cars literally have to drive over this, and there's nothing supporting the road. And I was informed by an engineer earlier that because there's multiple sewer caps here, there's actually a water main running right under this. And then we wonder why there's water problems. How long has this been like this?
It's been like this about 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
And has anyone said at any point, like, if they're gonna come fix this at any point?
Nah, they do just like everybody else you see and just drive right around it and keep paying no mind. It's been like this for a minute, man. Nobody's done anything about it.
Yep. And in this area, I mean, like, obviously the water crisis has been going on for a while now, and like even before this, I've talked to a lot of people who they can't drink, haven't been able to drink the water for weeks, months, some people longer than that. How has it been in this area?
It's been pretty bad, man. It's gotten to the point to where people have to now pass out water to other people just to make sure they're healthy and able to maintain. So it's been pretty bad, man. And it's a shame that not a lot of people are talking about it. I wish, you know, we as people could do more about it, but there's nothing we could do at the moment, and that's pretty sad.
Yep. And like, what have you thought so far? Like, I mean, the fact that they're getting water out and whatnot at the water stations is fine and all, but like, no one's really talking about like, how do you make sure this doesn't happen again? What do you think about the response so far from the governor, the mayor, who seemingly, you know, I'm hearing they're trying to do stuff, but I mean, if this has been like this, like that, this is one example, right? 2 years, and no one's fixing the giant fucking hole in the ground. That's a problem. What do you think of the responses from some of these folks so far?
They haven't said too much. I think the responses are okay, but like I said, there's not much that they're saying that they can do at the moment. And with the governor and the mayor saying that there's no predicted end date for this is outrageous, man. I feel like, you know, more people should be speaking up, more people should be stepping up, and that's not being done at the moment. So that definitely should change, man. And I wish we as people had a bigger voice, you know. But with us being the people that we are and with how things are going, I just think it sucks, man.
Yeah, and I mean, like, frankly, it seems like, you know, money will come from the federal government to the state of Mississippi, and then proportionally, like, the money should be, you know, Jackson's the capital city, it's the largest city in the state. The money seems to be going more towards, frankly, whiter, more affluent parts of the state, and Jackson is clearly being ignored. This is one anecdote of many that, like, a lot of folks have seen. I've been out here talking to folks and seeing stuff like this. I mean, is that something you see? Like, a lot of the rest of the state, I feel like, doesn't have to necessarily deal with this.
Yeah, they don't. My dad stays in Madison, so I kind of got a view of both parts, you know, and I just see in Madison it's no problem, you know, everything's completely fine, shower, water, whatever you need, and then I come down here during the week and it's just like the complete opposite, you know, it's just like two different views of life, and I just see how things were completely fine. And now, if this was a problem in Madison, I feel like it would have been fixed, or a different part of a wider area, it would have been taken care of. But with it being Jackson and our population and just our ethnicity, our main ethnicity and whatnot, I just feel like that's the reason that it's not being taken care of. And because those wider communities are fine and they don't have a problem, that's why the situation's not being handled like it should be. I feel like if this was more of a widespread thing, then this would have been taken care of. But because it's not, then it's not.
Yeah, no, and seemingly, like, this made national news last week for like 5 minutes apparently, and then everyone just assumes that the problem is solved, and like, in reality, this has been a problem for a lot more than last week when they brought it up.
Yeah.
And it's clearly not solved. There's still issues going on all over the place. I guess one last question for you: if there's anything, you know, you wish folks outside of here, you know, knew about what was going on, well, what would you share with them, and you know, what's your appeal to try to get some actual help here?
I mean, I would just tell everybody what's going on, you know. With us not being able to shower and, you know, having to boil water, and when it got to I would just tell people, like, hey man, it's to the point where people have to literally pass out water to people who can't afford it or can't afford to go buy a hotel for 2-3 weeks at a time, you know. That's just sad, man. And, you know, there are older people who are out here on their own, and with situations like this, they can't go get water, you know. They can't afford to take care of themselves right now, you know. So I just feel like that just needs to be spread before things happen and people get to a point where they have to do things to be able to survive, you know. So this is a pretty serious situation. This is life or death, you know. You need water. So I just tell people, man, if you can, you know, come out here, do like other people are doing. pass out water, do what you can, make sure people are all right. If you see somebody, you know, at the store, they're thirsty, help them out with the drink, because it's really bad out here.
Yep.
I mean, we've gotten to a point where people can't even shower, so.
Yeah.
So I think the mayor has been very clear on the long-term solution, and that is to rebuild the city of Jackson's infrastructure. And the only way to do that is to have the financial resources to do it. It is estimated that this could be somewhere close to $2 billion project, right? And so the solution is there.
Right.
It's just a solution that not many want to invest into, but yeah, I think the mayor has been very clear. And those who are well learned on the situation knows as well, been very clear. The solution to Jackson's water problem is investing in the infrastructure and rebuilding of the infrastructure, and coming up with that $2 billion to do it.
Absolutely, and you know, as Jordan's reported on, and I'm learning more and more about this from folks like you and folks that I spoke with yesterday, Jackson is just seemingly historically underfunded from the state level. You know, Mississippi will get resources, and then Jackson is frankly not getting their fair share of what they should be getting population-wise. I mean, this is the capital city. It's the largest city in the state of Mississippi. You know, money that should be going here is going to more affluent, frankly, more white parts of the state, leaving Jackson with less in general. And yeah, I mean, it's obviously the water is what everyone's talking about right now, but a lot of the city needs help in infrastructure in a lot of ways. The roads are something that I'm hearing from a lot of folks. Can you just talk about the kind of the history of the state kind of leaving Jackson short on funding and other ways as well?
Well, historically, the state of Mississippi has underfunded many projects that include poor and low individuals, right? As we look across the state of Mississippi, public education has historically been underfunded. The refusal to expand Medicaid, sending back $130 million in rental assistance for poor and low wealth individuals who actually need that assistance. So it isn't unusual for the federal government to underfund, have a history of underfunding what's the necessities here in the state. So Jackson is one of the many issues, or I'll say projects here, the infrastructure project that's been underfunded, right? So this state, this Republican-led state leadership, this is their practice. They don't believe that poor folks should get, as they say, handouts. And they need to pull themselves up by the bootstraps, and they've been pulling themselves up by the bootstraps since they've been here on this earth with little to no resources.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, during the last water crisis, the governor literally said something along the lines of, if people don't want boil water notices, they should pay their water bills. And then when, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when the state legislature passed a bipartisan bill to essentially get rid of the help pay everyone's water bill and get everybody up to date, he actually vetoed the bill. You honestly can't make that up. There's a solution to the problem that literally had a bipartisan bill in the state legislature goes through, and the governor chooses to not solve the problem, and that money would have gone eventually into the water department, and they would have been able to potentially use some of it to, obviously it's a drop in the bucket compared to what's needed, but something is better than nothing. But rather than doing something like that to help, he vetoes it and chooses to do nothing. I want to ask you about one thing that kind of made some news yesterday. The governor actually said that privatization is on the table for the Jackson water system. That's been done in other places, Flint, Michigan being one of them, and we all know how that story goes. Can you talk about what the implications of that might be if something like that were to happen here?
So what we're seeing is one of the reasons, and the governor, gives himself away. The first thing that comes out of your mouth as a solution is privatizing the city of Jackson's water, right? This is a direct setup, the same way they wanted to take over the airport, right? Come in and take over the city. Now you want to take over our water. And this is so that these contracts can go to the governor's cronies, right? You will have the control of who the contractor is that you're privatizing the water to. So, you know, these games that we've been played, extreme racist politics, have been played out for decades here in the state of Mississippi, right? It's up to Mississippians to take a stand, especially Jacksonians, because we're the ones that are directly impacted. We have to be the ones who raise our voices and push back on the governor, right? These are our tax dollars that we have invested into the city. And for individuals who don't necessarily live here. The governor lives here now because he's the governor, but his home is in Rankin County, or was in Rankin County. So these issues he has not had to deal with. But to just take away what taxpayers have invested into, that is foul, that's immoral, and this is, again, another racist antic that the governor is trying to push.